What does it feel like for you to think about the word expose? Does it make you uncomfortable? What does it make you think when we're talking about sex and trauma in the same conversation? What does it feel like when we use the word seduction, seductive conversation, as we talk about the interplay between sex and trauma? What does that feel like? Is there a little bit of rumbling, or does it make you uncomfortable? Hey y'all, I'm so happy to be here. I think I'm super overjoyed and want to make sure I can get my conversation out because I just can't believe that we're finally here. I'm really overjoyed. I'm just excited to finally be here to have these conversations on Xpose H.E.R where we talk about all things exposed. The seductive conversations that connect intimacy and trauma, the things that we never want to talk about, the things that we have fear about or that may come up in our head, but we have a hard time talking about them in any spaces, or we have shame, or we have guilt, or we have some kind of message telling us that we shouldn't be having that conversation. Well, Xpose H.E.R, this is the place where we're going to have those conversations. In this first episode, we're going to talk about peeking past those thighs, embracing both sides of me. Tanya the bold and Juliet the romantic. If you see the cover, you'll notice on the cover that I got a little bit of thigh meat out. And it's very intentional. I also have on my nice little wig that I made because I wanted to do a photo shoot. And when I did that photo shoot, you guys, I intersected between different pictures. And I don't even know if intersected is the word. That's too big of a word. I transitioned between different pictures because I was in a big season of healing. Right before I did that photo shoot, I cut off my locks. And when I cut off my locks, I had decided within myself that it was time to remove the energy that was within that hair for so long. I'd had my locks for 12 years. And in those 12 years, I had experienced pain. I had some joy too, but there was a lot of hurt that was in those locks. There was a lot of weight in those locks. And so when I cut them off, people were like, Julia, you're going to cut your hair off? And I was like, yes, I'm going to cut my hair off. Now, I loved my locks. My locks were about down to here. But I was ready to release what was in there. And that was the first time I cut off my hair to this low cut here. So I decided I wanted to do a photo shoot. I'm into nude photo shoots, different things like that. But this one was not quite nude, but it was a level of exposure. Because for me, our bodies, when they are in their nude form, are the rarest form. Because out of the womb, we came naked, right? And so it feels like freedom to me. And so I did this photo shoot. And in the photo shoot, I also wanted to have that wild hair, that wig, because my grandmother used to wear big hair. And that big hair was so powerful to me. My grandmother was like a staple of power. She walked around with power. She exuded power. She exuded a spirit of freedom, artistry, art, love, an understanding of temperament, a strength, a protection. And so that was a big part of me having on that wig there, because there was two seasons of me. There was the one with the bald head and there was the one with the fro. And it felt so free. So before we go deeper, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a survivor, and I'm learning to thrive. Yes, I'm a therapist. Yes, I'm a sexual trauma advocate. I have a passion about teaching you to connect intimately, to heal from trauma, and to know that there's hope beyond that. But most of all, I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual molestation. I'm a survivor of some, I guess, emotional challenges and neglect in a relationship with my mom. I'm a survivor of being a fatherless child. And one thing that I often struggled with was admitting to or saying out loud that I had daddy issues. And as I struggled with that idea of daddy issues, it was always connected to fear that if people knew that I had daddy issues, then no man would desire or like me. I don't know. You get these narratives built from people talking around you, from your environment, from all kind of different things. But in my healing process, I started realizing I didn't just have daddy issues. My daddy wasn't present. He was an absent father. However, my mom was present, and I had mommy issues. And as I started going through my therapy, I realized that my mommy issues were a lot louder than my daddy issues. Of course, my daddy issues were present, but it was just different. And we'll talk about that as time goes on. So when talking about the trauma that I've experienced, it shaped my understanding of relationships. It shaped how I understood relationships, how I connected with people, how I understood everything, y'all, because I didn't really understand anything. I learned a lot by observing other people, observing their experiences. Well, maybe this is what life is supposed to be because they come from this type of home. So maybe that is, what life is supposed to be. So I learned a lot from those things. So those early wounds I talked about shaped my understanding of relationships, like my relationship with people and my relationship with God. Sometimes I would be so hurt by God. I feel like I was taught all these things about God. God will save you. God will heal you. God will protect you. God will cover you. And I often felt like I was crying to God, like all the time, like, God, save me. God, make me have a happy experience. God, give me joy. And I just felt like God was not answering my prayers. And I just didn't understand. I didn't understand if God is so great. If God is this God that everybody talks about, this God that's so amazing, this God of all these things, then why would he allow so much to continue to happen? Honestly, at one point I was so angry because I felt like, okay, God, yes, I have the ability to inspire people. Yes, I have the ability to feed into people's lives, but why did I have to go through so much to save other people? That's not fair, God. That's just mean. And so for a long time, I saw God as mean because I just didn't understand why the pain kept coming and why I was crying to God and dreaming of so many things happening and desiring so much to happen, and it just wasn't happening. And so I was angry. There are moments that I saw God as punitive. I didn't see God as this protector. I didn't see God as this nurturer, this connection. I saw God as punitive, and I didn't feel seen by God. And I don't know if you can imagine that, but that is an extremely lonely feeling. I'm telling you all of this because this is my story. And in these first episodes, I want you to have the opportunity to get to know me, because Xpose H.E.R is about the exposure of the things that we have gone through, the things that I have gone through, and allowing you guys to be in that conversation with me so that then we can also understand the healing that comes in that process, okay? So yes, there's trauma. Yes, there's hurt. Yes, there are times where I did not understand what was happening. But I want to tell you this, trauma is not the end of the story. It took me a while to understand that healing is possible. But when we truly understand that healing is possible, then we're able to dive into these conversations, because no matter what amount of exposure happens on this podcast, because healing is within me, then I also live in a space of freedom. And that is what I desire for you. Yeah, healing is possible, but we also want to understand that I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that healing is linear, right? That it's going to be 1 + 1 = 2. And then if I do this and I walk this path and I go to my therapy and I let her tell me what to do, then I'll get to the space of healing, right? But that's not true. That's not true. That's a lie. Healing is not linear, y'all. Healing is work. Healing is presence. Healing is exposure with your heart. Healing is exposure with your shame. Healing is presence. Healing is asking hard questions. Healing is tears that we cry that we're afraid of crying. Healing is so much bigger than just stepping into the space of a pastor or a speaker or a therapist or a coach. Healing is work that we have to be invested in being a part of. And so I've learned in this process, Lord, I've learned in this process to embrace the vulnerability, to embrace that the only way that this heart that has gotten built with so many bricks and ice, the only way that it can melt, the only way these things can be shattered and torn down is if I embrace the vulnerability, allow a little warmth and heat to come into this space. And when it comes into this space, y'all, it starts to melt and healing becomes possible. There's hope. It becomes visible. And so exposure is not so scary anymore, because when we understand when I am exposed, all of that stuff is out of me. And then I have the process. I have the ability to heal. So I know I'm sounding like a little bit of a preacher right now, but I get passionate in this space, and I want us to be able to have this conversation together. What does it feel like for you to think about the word expose? Does it make you uncomfortable? What does it make you think when we're talking about sex and trauma in the same conversation? What does it feel like when we use the word seduction, seductive conversation, as we talk about the interplay between sex and trauma? What does that feel like? Is there a little bit of rumbling, or does it make you uncomfortable? Asking those questions to yourself allows us to expose whatever that feeling is within. Expose what that thing is within that's making me uncomfortable. Let me tell you why this is important. Because when we expose what's in us, we get to our voice. I don't know. I always refer to this movie. I don't even know if y'all know the movie. It might be Green Mile or something. But all I know is that in the movie, I remember the man had, and I'm probably describing this wrong, but the man had all them bugs in his mouth or something. And he went, and all the bugs came out. I don't know if y'all remember that. I think it's Green Mile. If you know what the name of the movie is, I want you to write it in the comments. But when I think about this pestilence of pain that's been in my soul, this pestilence of pain that I know is in your soul, that you think is going to connect to all your nervous system for the rest of your life. When I think about that pain that's in your body, I think about opening our mouths wide and screaming out, and releasing it. Because when we release it, we release all of that pestilence. And when we release the pestilence, we release the power that the sex trauma, the rape, the abandonment, the emotional pain, the domestic violence, the abuse, the religious trauma has had on us. We release it. And when our voices have power, y'all, woo, about to make me cry in here. When our voices have power, we expose all of that and we release the pain. And when we release the pain and we embrace the vulnerability, we start walking a little lighter. You see, I have my shoes off. I like to have my tools free. If it was some dirt right here, I'd have them walking through it. We release it. And when we release the shame, when we release the pain, when we release all of these things that we're carrying that is unwarranted and it's not ours to carry, the healing is something we could never imagine. That's why I do what I do. That's why I come to have this conversation with you. That's why I'm on this podcast with you, because as a trauma-focused therapist, speaker, podcaster, advocate, I'm here to teach you what it means to find freedom, because what we don't realize is that our sexual trauma impacts all the layers of our lives. It impacts so many levels of intimacy. And oftentimes we're so disassociated from it because we're like, oh, that doesn't affect me anymore. Or that's not a part of my life anymore. Or why do people have to have such deep conversation? Why are people soaking in their pain? Right? Victim blaming. That's what we do. But we don't realize that our traumas, whether it's sexual trauma, it's physical trauma, it's emotional neglect, they impact every aspect of our lives. Intimacy is more than sex. Will we talk about sex on here? Of course we will. God created sex. He created our bodies with so many nerves in our nervous system. We're supposed to experience every part of it, but we were not supposed to experience it the way we did when we experienced sexual abuse. So my job is to teach you about your trauma, to teach you how that sexual trauma impacted all of your nervous system, so that we can learn to release it and we can have conversations with you about how you didn't realize how much it was impacting you. So then we can get it off of us, and then we can walk boldly, sexy, without the shame that somebody else put on us that it wasn't ours to carry. So I got a little carried away, so let me come back to my notes. So I want to walk alongside you. I want to walk with you as women. And men, if you're listening too, because I know you can use it too. Because sexual trauma does not just happen to women. I just focus more on women. But the information I provide is universal in healing process. I walk beside you on this journey. I walk beside women as they are reclaiming their story, as they're opening their mouths and they're releasing their voices, as they're recognizing that they've held on to this pain, they've held on to this story for so long, and they did not understand how it was impacting their relationships with their husband. They didn't understand how, or their partners. They didn't understand how it's impacting their businesses because of their insecurities and not realizing that they are enough. So then you're trying to grow like me as an entrepreneur and as a speaker, but you're so afraid to step out, and you're not realizing that the trauma that you have experienced have impacted your belief system, and so therefore you don't think you're enough. You walk into crowds and you think you don't belong. So when we understand that, y'all, we understand how our trauma impacts our physical intimacy, our sexual intimacy, our spiritual intimacy, our intellectual intimacy, and our emotional intimacy. All of the levels of intimacy are impacted. So that means nothing is not touched. But if we're not present with it, we won't understand. I struggled so many years with not feeling good enough, but people who've been around me would never know that because I laugh often. I take care of people. I advocate for people. Hell, I didn't even know why I struggled with feeling good enough. But as I started wondering about my imposter syndrome, I started wondering why I get scared in spaces, or I started getting insecure about my weight, or because I ain't always been this thick, but hey, it is what it is. But it is what it is right now. We working on that too. But I started realizing how much I was struggling. I started realizing how I was as I got older into my career, and relationships started to change, and friendships and romantic, and I started realizing that it triggered spaces in me of not feeling good enough. And in understanding that, I started reflecting back, and I started realizing what that was rooted in, not feeling good enough when we didn't have the money, when we were poor but in private school. So in one group of people, they think you're rich because you go to private school, but in the private school, people know you ain't got money like that. So not really knowing where you fit, not really knowing much of anything, but everybody thinks you do. I can't speak for anybody else, but that's what it felt like. So this podcast, y'all, is an extension of my work here in the office. This podcast is an extension of my speaking, my workshops. This podcast is a space where we could keep it real. And yes, I may get preachy sometimes because I can't help it. That's who I am. But this podcast is an extension of all of that. It's an opportunity for us to just be here, to talk openly about the things that we've been taught to hide, and together we can uncover them. Together we can hold space. Together we can be safe and heal. I mean, do you want to heal? When I say the word heal, what does that sound like for you? Does it seem possible? Do you feel like you can't relate? Do you feel like maybe you know your story, but you're so detached from it that you just learn to survive outside of it? I just want you to think about, what does it feel like for you when you think about that word heal, when you think about intimacy, when you think about sexual intimacy, when you think about spiritual spaces, religious spaces. I don't want to say spiritual because my story is directly related to religious spaces. When you think about sexual trauma, when you think about your desire to connect, when you think about your desire to have a relationship, to be hugged but to feel uncomfortable being hugged, to be touched but to feel your nervous system flare up when you're touched. When you think about those things, is there shame there? Is there fear there? Is there embarrassment there? I get it. And so that's why I'm here, to be in that conversation with you, to walk that journey with you, to walk beside you, so that we can uncover your strength, your beauty, and all those things that have been hidden in spaces that you didn't know. So you can heal deeply, you can emerge powerfully, and you can get to know a part of you that you never imagined. So let me transition. Let's break down what H.E.R stands for and why it is the heartbeat of this podcast. Healing, exploration, and restoration. You see, these aren't just words. They are the pillars of our journey and the foundation of our exploration. Healing isn't linear, but it's essential. We'll talk about what it means to create space to heal, what it means to create space and hold space for the pain you've experienced, understanding that you will not get stuck there as long as you choose not to get stuck. A lot of us won't stay where we are. We won't allow ourselves to identify the problems that we're dealing with because we're afraid of getting stuck there. We're afraid of feeling all the things there. But the problem is that we don't realize is that when we don't allow ourselves to feel the things that are present, then we're stuck there anyway. Because with us not feeling them, we have no ability to heal. And when we have no ability to heal, we have no ability to connect, to truly connect. And that is the one thing most of us desire, whether we admit it or not. And so if I don't heal, then I can't connect. And if I can't connect, then I maintain myself in detached, maladaptive relationships or unhealthy relationships. Let me get out of the therapy tone. If I don't connect, if I don't feel, if I don't let my emotions be there, and I don't allow somebody to help me through them, then I'll stay in the type of relationships I've been in. What I mean is been in relationships that are situationships, being in relationships that are lasting forever but going nowhere, being in relationships where people are unavailable. They're unavailable to you, but you think you've made them available to you. So if I do not heal, if I am not present with my emotions, although I think I'm protecting myself from being stuck, I'm staying stuck. Next thing, exploration. Healing opens the door to curiosity. And baby, I'm all about curiosity. So in our exploration, as we understand the healing, then we'll say, okay, let's explore a little bit. When I understand that I have had my journey, my trauma, I have done some messed up things. I've been mixed up in some messed up situations. I don't understand them. Hell, I don't even know how to be in a relationship. I'm done with God. I'm done with church people because they all fake. They don't protect nobody but themselves, or wherever it shows up. I'm done with my parents, or I don't even know how to parent because I've been through so much with my parents. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm pissed off with myself because I'm showing up as my parents did. Whatever it is, right? We go through the healing, then we get to explore. We get to be real with ourselves and say, what am I curious about in my space of exploration? What am I curious about understanding? If I didn't understand why my body couldn't connect sexually, if I didn't understand why when I hug somebody I feel like a little grossed out, or when they touch me a certain way I feel a little grossed out, but at the same time I want to be connected. Why I get nervous when I want to communicate my emotions and I can't quite get them out. I want to be able to communicate them to people, but I get stuck in the space of them. I have all these things that are in my heart, all these things that I experience, but I can't get them out. What about that? I don't know how to do it. We go into the curiosity of those spaces. The question I have for you is, what do you need? What do you want? What do you want to experience? What if you think that you're the only one experiencing something that's happened in your story and there's so many other people experience it? That's what Xpose H.E.R is about, because as I go start bringing the guests on here and we have conversations, y'all, do you know how powerful it is to know that somebody else went through the crap you went through? It's like misery loves company, although we don't want to be in a place of misery loves company. But at the same time, misery does love company because we want to understand what you went through. And then sometimes in us understanding what you went through, it allows us to understand ourselves better. Okay. So let me see. Exploration. What do you need? What do you want? And what have you been too afraid to explore? This is where we ask questions. This is where we challenge old narratives and we uncover desires that we didn't even know we had. It's time to learn to play again. It's time to learn to trust. It's time to learn to live. This is that space, all right? So that's what leads us into the restoration. Restoration is our destination, and that's where we're headed. It's about reclaiming what's been lost. Your sense of self, your ability to connect, your safety, your trust, your playfulness, your innocence, your vulnerability, your peace, your joy, your happiness, and any other words you can think of. This is our place to restore those spaces where someone attempted to steal them. It's our space to reclaim them with power. This is our space. Your restoration is about building bridges. Building bridges to yourself, building bridges to your partner, building bridges to your children, building bridges to God. Restoration is like building a bridge. And as that bridge starts building, you start realizing, oh my gosh, I can cross the bridge. And I don't have any fear. I'm restored. I can reclaim what's been taken from me. That's the R in the her, the restoration. All right? Do you want to be restored? I know I have been enjoying my process of restoration. I'm in this space of survival. I'm no higher than you. I'm a survivor also. I'm just a wise woman, inspiring strength and empowerment. I just want you to walk on this journey with me because I know what the other side looks like. And I want as many women as I can talk to, as I can reach from this seat to experience healing also. This now, let me remind you, you will get a lot of therapeutic tools, but this is not therapy, so I want to be clear in communicating that. But I want you to heal. I want you to experience everything that God has for you because I know what I've experienced. All right, ladies. So this podcast is here to hold space for it all. The healing, the messiness of exploration, and the beauty and freedom that comes in restoration. Because when we're honest about our pain and brave enough to embrace our growth, we make space for love, for freedom, and for connection. So ladies, healing is our foundation. Exploration is our adventure. And restoration, hey baby, that's our freedom. So let me be honest. Starting this podcast wasn't easy for me. I struggled. I don't know if any of y'all struggle with listening to your voice or all of those different things, but I struggled. I struggled with what people would think. I struggled with so many things, but you know what I remembered? And it was some advice that my brother gave me one time. He said, when we're thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about all these things that might happen to us or our insecurities. And in the midst of thinking about all of that, we're forgetting the mission. And the mission is you. So ladies, I got a couple of things for you. This podcast isn't just about conversation. It's a movement. It's about reclaiming our voices, reclaiming our lives, reclaiming our truth. That's what this podcast is about, all right? So get ready, baby, because the upcoming episodes, they're going to take us on a ride. We'll uncover secrets we've even kept from ourselves, dive into surprising truths about intimacy and connection, and sprinkle a little spice here and there. You're going to laugh, you're going to gasp, you're going to cry, you might feel a little bit of embarrassment, you're going to blush, but I promise you, you won't want to miss what's coming next. So until next time, sis, let's keep it bold, let's keep it sexy, and we're going to sure enough keep it real. Let's expose her, all of her. I'll talk to you soon.